Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity, community service, and volunteering, spreading positivity to others. We're all about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me this week, I've got a very special guest. He is a former WWE Tag Team Champion, former USWA Tag Team Champion, and a former Pro Wrestling Noah Tag Team Champion. Pleased to welcome the one, the only Bull Buchanan to the show. Welcome, Bull.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, you grew up in Georgia. Tell me about your childhood and upbringing.
So only child, had great parents, tried to stay active in sports, played a little bit of, tried it all, played baseball, played basketball, football, a little bit of everything. Normal kid, I guess.
So it's fair to say you were a big sports fan from an early age.
Yes. Yep.
What was your favorite one to play?
Actually, my favorite sport to play was baseball, but I just wasn't any good at it. I played every year, but I just wasn't my thing. I played basketball. I played basketball all through high school and wound up playing a couple of years college ball, small college, junior college. But my favorite to play was actually baseball. I sucked at it, so go figure.
I'm very sorry to hear that. Well, what kind of got you into professional wrestling? Was it something you watched on TV growing up? Was it something that you followed on later?
No. I found it when I was a little kid, and I couldn't believe the guys talked about each other, the way they did. I'd never heard that in any of the other sports, and that's what initially kind of hooked me in was, the way they talked crap about each other. And then I started watching it, and I fell in love with it. I couldn't get enough of it. And, back growing up in the 70s and 80s, you were lucky if you got an hour or maybe 2 hours a week of it. It's not like it is now.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to come by, and I went to the stores and I found the magazines. I read all the magazines and just learned about it that way.
Who were some of your favorites to watch growing up?
When I first started watching, I watched Georgia Championship, so of course Tommy Rich, wrestling too. Later on the Freebirds, the Von Erichs, Magnum TA, Barry Windham, Terry Gordy, all those guys. I liked all of them.
Good old-fashioned Southern wrestling, as they called it back in the day.
Yep.
And you had your Ric Flairs and your Harley Races. Oh, man.
Yeah.
We could be here all day just naming the greats.
Yep.
Wow. So cool. So what was it in your mind that made you go, I've got to do this. I've got to pursue this dream?
I saw a video of Tommy Rich, and it was kind of like a camera following him around for the day, and he was driving this black Trans Am, with the tops out, and he was going to the show here, and the fans were falling all over him, and I said, God, what a great way to make a be able to just travel around and do this. And as I got older, I got to be a teenager. I was already, 6'1", 6'2", and I started springing up, and I said, well, hell, this might be something I can do. Cause the guys I was watching, a lot of the guys, I was a huge Von Erich fan. I was a huge Freebird fan. Of course, Terry Gordy, Terry was, just a big raw bone country boy. David Von Erich, he was 6'7", 6'8", same deal. I mean, I looked at them and I said, man, they kind of look like I do. I bet maybe I could do this. And I just set my mind to it. That's what I was going to do. And I just, I wasn't going to take no for an answer. Uh, yeah, I know, they broke Hogan's leg, when he tried to, thank God, nobody did that to me. I was, no matter, I remember the first day I went and trained and I got out of the ring and my head was, just pounding. I couldn't believe how bad it was hurting.
I bet.
And I
Yeah.
sat down in a chair and, it dawned on me. I said, oh my God, this is really tough. And I said, well, I don't care if I got to take a bottle of aspirin every day. I'm doing this. And I just kept going from there.
Yeah, it seems like the training to be a pro wrestler is very intense. It requires a lot of discipline and focus, and just you have to be in like the right frame of mind to get into shape when you're trying to become a professional wrestler. It's very different from like your typical workouts.
Yes. Yeah. Because nothing you do is natural. It's nothing natural about falling down on your back. There's nothing natural about any of the stuff you do. So you have to almost retrain your mind. But back when I broke in, the mentality still was, we're going to, beat the crap out of them, run them till they puke, to see who really wants it, and that's who we're going to let in, you know.
Kind
Uh,
of testing you a little
but
bit.
right, yeah. Uh, and that's just the way it was. That was the way things were done back then. The guy that trained me, James Hammonds, he didn't take it easy on me. Now he didn't brutalize me either, but he he showed me right off the bat. I remember the first time I talked to him, and he said, "Well, he said, you know, he said you probably ain't gonna make no money, and you probably gonna get hurt." And looking back on it, the reason he told me that was, so I had realistic expectations coming in because for a lot of guys that's exactly what happened. You never make very much money at it, and you always wind up beating your body up. But in the next breath, he said, but then you have there's always people that do make it. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I started out.
When you broke into the business, you just talked about the trainer that you had. Did you rub shoulders at all with any of the veterans at that time? What kind of pieces of advice were you given by some of the guys in the locker room that you were working with?
Oh God, the guy that trained me, James Hammonds, he wrestled as old as James here around Georgia. He was he was already, he was older. I guess he was already in his 30s. Probably, had a fairly large family, had a good job. He wasn't really interested in traveling the world or anything like that. But man, he really put me on right path, and everything he told me, the basics, were all spot on. Uh, but the guy that trained him was Ted Allen. Is pretty well known here in Georgia. He trained Ray Traylor, Big Boss Man. He also trained Arn Anderson. He wrestled as the Nightmare. And him and I got to wrestle Dutch Mantel early on. Uh, Wound up riding with Tommy Rich for a few years, in Smoky Mountain, and then later on in Memphis. Tommy always told me when we would talk about it. Most of the time we didn't really talk about the business. We talked about football or we listened to music or whatever. But when we did talk about the business, I would ask him things, like, well, how do you know how do you, and he would always tell me that you got to listen to the crowd because you never know what they're buying that night. And you always got to have a variety of stuff. You have to, some people come to the match. Some people come because of the girls. Some people come because of the blood. Some people come because, the girls come to see the guys. Guys come to see the girls. Some people, the blood, the violence, some people just come because it's something, you gotta have a variety of stuff on the show.
Right.
You can't just have a one-dimensional,
Yeah, I definitely like how you use the term variety because pro wrestling's always been about variety, whether it's characters or storylines or the technical wrestling aspect. It seems like if you put all that stuff together, it creates a good product.
Right. Yeah.
Now, you made your debut in 95 and you started working for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, as you talked about, and also had a stint in Memphis. What was it like working for the Tennessee territory?
Oh shit, it was great. I think I started in about 91 or 92. And I got my start there in Georgia, small shows and but I Tennessee was great. Smoky Mountain was everything I thought wrestling would be. It was Cornette ran it as just like another territory. We had our big towns that we went to. We had our spot show towns. We had fairs and carnivals and stuff that we went to. We worked 4 or 5 days a week. So it was like a working territory. And Memphis was a working territory. So, but I went to Smoky Mountain first. I stayed there until it closed down. And then when I went to Memphis, I was actually already under contract with WWE, and they sent me down there. But you know, at but in Memphis, man, you really worked.
Oh yeah.
It was 6, 7 days. You would usually start out, the Coliseum. When I first got there, the Coliseum was still running, which it closed. They quit running the Coliseum not long after I got there. But you do the Coliseum on Monday. Then Tuesday was the damn, a 9-hour drive to Louisville. You'd do Louisville. We would drive back to Memphis at night because Wednesday night was Tunica, Mississippi, which was about 40 miles from Memphis. It was at a casino. Thursday night was usually spot show. Friday night was a spot show, Dyersburg, somewhere like, or maybe West Arkansas, somewhere like that. And then Saturday morning, you did live TV at, I think it started at 9 o'clock. You did live TV at the Channel 5 or Channel 13, whatever it was at the time. You do that live TV, then you would leave from there. You go to this huge flea market on the other side of town called the Big One. We would wrestle there till, from like 1 till 3. And then you had to haul ass to Nashville because that was the show that night, was in Nashville, Tennessee. And then if you were lucky, Sunday you were off. But I mean, you were racking up some miles, but you were also racking up a lot of time in the ring. And man, when I was down there, Lawler was there, Dundee was there, and their sons were just as good.
Brian Christopher. Yeah.
Brian Christopher, and Jamie. They were just as good as the parents. To work with. And Tracy Smothers was in that. All the who's who of Memphis. They were still there, so we got to work with all of them. So yeah, it was a great experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a full schedule and a loop. I mean, you really like had to put in the work.
Oh yeah. We would drive to Louisville. We would drive all day that day, wrestle, and then we would drive back because we knew if we didn't, we would have to drive that next day, and you were just getting behind the 8 ball. So yeah, it was but it was fun. We would travel together, and just the stupid stuff guys do when they're on the roads to kill time. Yeah.
Now, when you were in the USWA and also a little bit of your early days with the WWE, you were part of the group called the Truth Commission. Tell me about that. What was that like?
Truth Commission was a Bret Hart concept. He met an actor over in South Africa named Robin Smith, who was the commandant. Came back and pitched the idea to Vince. Vince loved it, so they got us all together. I think Bret knew most of the guys from Canada. He knew Robert Mayat Kurgan. He had been over and worked at Bret's place a little bit, worked out a little bit at the Hart house.
He went on to become a big movie star too, if I'm not
mistaken.
Huge
movie, big movie star, right? He's wasting time in pro wrestling. I'm so happy for him because he's such a good dude, man. You talk about Gentle Giant is his picture in the dictionary next to it.
Yeah.
Mike Halleck, who just passed away recently, God rest his soul. Good dude. Wrestled as Mantar.
Yeah.
Owen. I think Owen knew him from over in Germany because he'd worked over in Germany with Owen.
Mm-hmm.
So Owen knew him, and then I think, from what I understand, they were just looking through some pictures, and Brett saw me and said, "Well, he looks like a military guy." I had the crew cut, clean shaven. He looks like a military guy. Let's put him in it. So, and that's how it was born. They sent us down to Memphis, and we worked down there for 5-6 months, and then they brought us up and made our debut on Raw or Shotgun, whatever whichever one it was at the time.
When you're dealing with the smaller crowds versus the bigger crowds in the WWE, I mean, there's a major difference. Were you nervous at all being in front of a large crowd?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think everybody is. I'd worked in front of 3 people, and I'd worked in front of 3,000 people. With when I got to Smoky Mountain, that was when the bigger crowd started showing. Because up to that point, 300 people was a big crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Got to Smoky Mountain. We did like the Night of Legends and stuff like that. And they several thousand people there, and then go over to Memphis. And Memphis College. And at the time, Memphis was kind of on its downhill run, I guess. But they're still drawing crowds, and you go to the Memphis, just the arenas. I guess was what did it for me, because these were the places I had sat and watched. Growing up all those years. All these great battles take place, and now you're standing in them. The Memphis Coliseum, Louisville Gardens, the Knoxville Coliseum, places like that, and then fast forward years later, Madison Square Garden, and just something about those places when you think about all the things that have took place in there.
Yeah, a lot of memories with the garden. We'll talk about that in just a second. But what happened exactly with the Truth Commission? Why did it seem to fall apart?
Well, like I said, it was Brett's idea, and once Brett made the decision that he was going to WCW, we were mid card at best. So I don't know that I don't know that it was something like, well, Brett's gone, so they're killing it off now. But I think once Brett left, and Brett left, and right before that, Robin, the original commandant, had some trouble with his visa.
Mm.
I think he was trying to get a full-time visa to live over here, and they couldn't get together for whatever reason, and they let him go, and they brought in Don Callis, which was great. Don Callis was just a tremendous worker, tremendous talent, as he still is. You can watch him every week on TV and see for yourself.
AEW.
But yeah, right, yeah. But we tried to go in a different direction with it, and I don't know. It just kind of is one of those things. Kind of fell between the cracks, I guess.
And
but
yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they brought you back later to be with the big boss man, Ray Traylor, a guy that you worked with in the early days of your career. What was it like working with him?
It was great. Ray was just a great guy. Never heard a bad word about him. He was very willing to teach. He would help anybody that wanted help or needed help. I learned a lot. I learned a lot in the ring, but I also learned a lot outside the ring. I didn't know. We were there as the Truth Commission. We were, like I said, we were mid card at best. People wasn't beating down our doors for interviews or for stuff like that. But when I got with Ray, it was a little different. And I really didn't know. I watched how Ray handled himself, not just in the ring, but outside the ring. How he did interviews, how he dealt with people. Ray had a real gift of being able to make people comfortable around him. Ray realized that a lot of times when these fans are meeting you for the first time, I mean, they're nervous. They're scared. They're shaking. They're sweating. They don't know what to say. And Ray just had this way of putting them at ease.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really disappointed. I think it was actually Ray that told me they were going to break us up. I was really disappointed because I just seen us. I just thought, man, we're going to be together forever. We're going to, a big run as tag champions. We're going to do this, and we're from the same part of the country. We were friends. I'd never met him until we actually started working together. But just in that short time, we were already, real good friends. We would go hang out at each other's place. When we were off the road, our families hung out together and went places together. So, yeah, I was really disappointed. But of course, Ray being Ray, he wouldn't dare, put heat on anybody. He just, he said he had to, I got to take some time off and, get my knee scoped. He had to, get a couple of things done, with his knee. But yeah, if I had to point to one thing and say, yeah, that, man, I wish I could have done that forever. That was it. Me and Ray.
Any fun stories you care to share about you and Ray together? Were you guys on the road traveling?
Oh my God. Yeah, just all the time. It was something. He was so funny. He'd call me up when we were at home. He called me up one day. He changed his voice pretty well. He called me up one day, and I just got done building. We just built our house. Had just a real nice place up on a hill, and it had a huge, half-mile paved driveway. And he called me up one day and pretending to be somebody from the state DOT and said they're going to have to dig up part of my driveway. And, he had me fighting. Man, I was, cussing and, ready to slam down the phone. And he told me it was him. But it was always something with him, he would do stuff just for, I've told this story a million times, but it's just, we were in Green Bay and, he did that thing with his nightstick where he would twirl it around. Well, it got away from him and went flying out through the crowd. We went on to the ring and did the match. We came back, and Jack Lanza, who was the agent back then, Jack Lanza was waiting on us. He said, he pulled him in. He said, Ray, that your club hit somebody in the head. And he said, we got him here in the back. And we went back there, and this guy had just, big goose egg, but he was tickled to death. He was getting big boss man. Now, couldn't get a smile off his face. This guy probably had a concussion, and I'm sure he went and got stitches afterwards. But Ray signed the nightstick and gave it to him, and just, this guy went away with more than a memory, I guess.
That's very
nice. It was always, tell you long tell's a great story about him and Ray riding together. And the hotel was on the other side. There was a 4 or 6 lane road, and the hotel was on the other side. And it was a raised median in the middle of the road. And they went past where they were supposed to turn. And Teddy said, Ray, I think we're supposed to turn there. And Ray just jerks the wheel to the left, hits the curb, jumps the car, over, lands in the parking lot, looks at Teddy and is giggling, says, oh, it's okay. It's a rental. It was just always something with him, but it was always, it was never any, mean spirited, anything like that.
All in good fun.
Right.
All in good fun. All right. So, Right to Censor. I know there's been several interviews talking about the formation of the group, why it started. How are you involved? How did you get involved with the faction?
So, they'd broken me and Ray up, and they told me, they said, we want to give you a little singles run here. And I had had some singles matches. Had one with Perry Saturn, had one with Chris Jericho, I think, on SmackDown. Was just doing some singles stuff, and me and Stevie Richards had got to be friends because I'd done a match over at ECW way earlier, after Smoky Mountain shut down, and I'd met him there. But at WrestleMania, I can't remember the numbers, but the one where me and Ray, I think we wrestled D'Lo and Godfather. That WrestleMania, me and Stevie we kind of met it. We kind of wound up at the gym at the same time, wound up working out together. Walked across the parking lot, to some restaurant, shared a meal together. So we got to be pretty good friends. And we were in Albany, New York. I was just doing the singles thing, just waiting to see which way they were going to go with it. And he came up and asked me, he says, "What did you hear?" And I said, "No, but what?" He said, "You're with me now." And I knew he'd been coming out in the shirt and the pants, but I wasn't really sure what the whole idea was. And so we sat down there backstage, and he laid it out. And that was the night that he brought me out with him, and he laid it all out to me. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this could really get some heat. I mean, this could really, you never know how you never know how it's going to come off. But yeah, it wound up with a bunch of heat, which was good for us. It's so funny to see people online, especially online, and they'll say, "Oh, I really hated those guys," and somebody will come back and say, "Oh, I did too." No, I really hated those guys. Not in a working sense. I really hated those guys. And it's funny to me because I mean, exactly, that's what we wanted. That's what we were trying to get. It, so I mean, I think we got our money's worth out of it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be tag champions with the Good
Right,
Father too.
right, and made some new friends. Me and Stevie got to be friends. Val, Ivory, me and Godfather and Teddy Long wound up riding as riding partners, and that was a lot of fun. Two great guys, but got to be some new friends, and it was a good time. It was a really good time.
Yeah. So the group lasted quite a while. I mean, like 6 to 8 months, something like that. Pretty much
Yeah,
almost,
yeah,
pretty much almost a year. And
yeah, yeah.
they broke you guys up, and they put you, I think, back in developmental. Is that correct? They had you do some dark matches before they put you with John Cena.
Well, yeah. So it was weird. I think I mean, everything has a shelf life. Everything expires at some point. Uh, I think we probably could have milked a little more out of it, but it was a crazy time because we had just bought WCW, and now you got a whole nother roster that you got to get on TV. And I mean, in all honesty, how are you not going to put Booker T on TV? How are you not going to put Arn Anderson? How are you not going to put those guys? They're going to say you're going to set Booker T on the sidelines. No. So we wound up sitting at home, but this time had a lot better contract, and so I knew that making that kind of money and sitting at home wasn't conducive to a long career. So I've always had a good relationship with Jr. Not in small part thanks to Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette was kind of my mentor. When I got to Smoky Mountain, uh, I listened to him. I watched him. I tried to learn as much as I could from him. But him and Jr. Were always. I felt like kind of had it in my corner. So I called Jr. up and I said, "Look, I can sit here and make this money, or I can go down to Louisville and do something. Try to work on something new." And so Jr. said, "Hey, take off." So I went down. I called Jimmy up. Jimmy's like, "Hell yeah, come on." So next week I was down there and just kind of started working on a little something different. But I went back down there, and then they called me for a few dark matches, and then I got me back on the road. So I was doing house shows, which was great because back then that was where a lot of your money came from. So I was doing house shows, and I was at all the TVs, but I was doing I'm sorry, I wasn't at all the TVs. We had separated at that point. There was Raw and
Yeah.
SmackDown, two separate crews.
Brand split, yeah.
Right. So I think I was on SmackDown. So I was doing dark matches at TV. Yeah. But just did that for a while, and then same as the right censor, somebody just popped up and said, "Hey, you're with John Cena tonight." It was really cool because I got to see, I kind of got to watch Cena. I remember him when he had some of his first dart matches out in California. And, you'd come back a few months later and, it'd be him again and he'd gotten a little better. And you'd come back a few months later and it'd be him again and he'd gotten a little better. And then when I did go down to OVW while I was off the road, that was the time when him and Orton and Shelton and Brock and all those guys were down there. So I got to see, I met him at dart matches because that's a hard thing to do. It's very intimidating, to walk in there, as an indie guy, especially back then, walk in there as an indie guy and go out there and know that all these guys were watching your match for whatever reason, it's kind of intimidating. So, and that's another thing I watched from Ray. Ray would always go and talk to the guys, and tell them, hey, I watched your match, you did this pretty good, Now, I was the same class as Ray is to be telling somebody how to do this or how to do that. But, if nothing more, just, hey, man, I watched your match. You're doing good. Just keep it up. Just, keep doing what you're doing. So I'd met him. And then I got to see him in OVW and I saw him on mic and I said, oh, man, he'll do something. And I was very surprised, when I got up there and, he just first done the ruthless aggression thing. And to find out that, they were actually considering, okay, well, maybe he don't have it. Maybe he's, and I thought, God, y'all are missing the boat on this guy. And then, he, the rapping thing caught on and he, took off.
It blew up.
Yeah, it did blow up huge. Yeah.
I mean, you were like at the forefront of that when he started doing that, and to see the phenomenon of John Cena that he became. I mean, what was it like working with him and being around him?
Oh, it was fun because it was totally different than anything I'd ever done. It was the whole character as I saw it. The whole character, B square, B2, whatever, was straight comedy. A white guy from rural Georgia trying to be a rapper. It was fun. We had fun with it. The matches were fun, but the stuff he would come up with for rap, some of the stuff he would rap as we were coming out to the ring, especially some of the stuff about Eddie and Chavo, because a lot of times he would, he said, hey man, I got this. This is what we're going to come out to. And I remember him telling me, we were working with Chavo and Eddie. And I remember thinking to myself, did you run this by them? Are they cool with this? Or, are we going to, catch the butt end of it when they get in the ring after they've heard it? But they were good. They were, good dudes, easy to work with. But no, it was just fun. I mean, we had a good time with it. I wish it had lasted longer, but for the short time that we did it, it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it could have lasted a lot longer than it did, unfortunately. And you got written off television in early 2003. Yep. What was the news? When did you receive the news that they were letting you go?
Well, the night that we broke up, I kind of had the feeling, I'd kind of seen the writing. I was like, okay, this might, because I'd been there already, for 7 or 8 years at the time. We had a lot of, like I said, a lot of young talent from our own developmental system. Plus, we had a lot of young talent from WCW, Sean O'Hare, Jindrak, Palumbo, all those guys, Stamboli, all those guys were young and hungry and ready to go. So I kind of had the feeling. And John Laurinaitis called me up and said, hey, look, nobody had said yay or nay at that point, but Laurinaitis called me up and said, hey, look, Royal Rumble's coming up. We're going to get you in it, get you a little payoff, which I thought was nice because, at that time, the pay-per-view, especially like Royal Rumble, WrestleMania and stuff, man, you're talking about
it's big money.
Several, some pretty good money. So did that. I was, in and out. Uh, and I think maybe a week or so later, he called me up. He says, "Well, they are going to let you go." But I have to say, to his credit, I asked him. I said, "Look, John, I only had, I think, maybe 6 months left on my contract, and I said, man, I know you don't have to, but if you guys paid it out, it would help a lot, as far as getting me going on something else." And they did. They did. So, you know, uh, my buddy and my partner D'Lo Brown had a saying, you do business the same way going out as you did coming in, and so yeah, I did whatever they had asked me to do. At that point, I was more willing to do, and I was very happy with the way they treated me on the way out, and uh, but at the same time, I it I actually I wasn't looking forward to it, but I always wanted to go to Japan. That was always on my bucket list. That was always something I wanted to do, and I was never going to be able to do it as long as I stayed there. So I looked at it as a new opportunity, and it was. I went over to Japan and had another 8-9 year run over there.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling in Japan it's a huge difference from wrestling in the United States because you're talking about two different cultures. What did you notice uh, when you were over there that you saw that was different from wrestling in the U.S.?
Well, everybody's aware of the term strong style, uh, which is the style of working over there, always has been. But the culture is, at least at that time, I'm sure it still is, was based off of Bushido, the way of the samurai. It was I think it was a 7-part code of how the samurai were to live, and uh, it was all the basically being a good human being, but it was also the whole honor, and the no quit. You never stop fighting. You don't, no surrender. So the wrestling, of course, is based off of that, of that, attitude. The rules of Bushido. You never quit, you never back down, you fight till the end. Uh, I've got just as big a reactions of losing over there as I have from winning. Uh, I found out early on that even when you lose over there, you can still, I just the easy stuff, just like, I remember taking Kabashi's clothesline. And I mean, man, when, he brought it. And that was out of respect for me because, he didn't want to beat me with something that, looked half-assed, you know. And I remember I started crawling up. I started trying to pull myself up the ropes, and I heard the people cheering, and so immediately, I fell back down. It's a different mentality over there, which I enjoyed. I know D'Lo did. D'Lo was just like me. He'd waited a long time to go over there, and it was something he wanted to do before we hung it up. And so I'm glad we got to do it, and I'm glad we got to do it together.
Definitely. Who are like some of your favorite opponents to work with in the ring?
Kensuke Sasaki, Muda, of course. I mean, there were just so many Japanese legends over there. We got to work with all of them. Tenryu, Kawada, Misawa, all those guys. Kabashi, of course. Got to work with all of them, and a lot of the younger guys too. Morishima, a lot of the Kenta, a lot of those guys. Got to work with them a lot, and Noah.
Yeah, and your son, Brooks Jensen, is also a professional wrestler. What made him decide to follow in your footsteps?
I think he always wanted to. He was just like me. He was in love with it, from a small, since he was a small kid. Uh, the difference, I guess, was there's a lot more access to it now. Plus, with kind of growing up in it. But yeah, it wasn't a huge surprise. Now my younger son, Zach, he's started. He had a few matches a couple of years ago, but he's still in high school. So football and wrestling are still take precedence right now. But he had a pretty good year from about March or April till football season started. He was hitting it pretty good every weekend. And then once football season and wrestling season are over, he'll probably get at it after it again. So
Right on.
yeah.
Any like words of wisdom or advice that you're giving them as far as like techniques or character building?
Yeah, I just I point them to the same places that I learned from. Watching the guys like Terry Gordy, Barry Windham. I tried to, especially for Brooks Jensen. He's my size, so I tried to. I had him watch different people. Like, I had him watch Kerry Von Erich for the charisma. I had him watch, Terry Gordy for the way he sold, the way he worked. Barry Windham, how smooth he was in the ring, And with Zach, I kind of do the same thing. I point him to guys. I said, now watch this guy and watch what he does with this, Of course, with Ben, people say, "Oh, he moves just like you do," and well, I tried. I appreciate the compliment, but you know, I always look to the guys that I looked up to. So, but yeah, I just do the same thing with Zach. I find. I told him, I said, he's about 6'3", more lean than Ben was, and so I said, watch Kevin Von Erich, watch him, watch the way he flies around the ring. So I think you try to find somebody that would match their style, or you think that they're that would they a lot of it's too what they want to do. What kind of wrestler do you want to be? You want to be a high flyer, you want to be a ground wrestler, what, so.
Yeah, it all depends on like your feels and your style for what you
Right,
want to do. Yeah.
right.
So switching gears, let's talk about the stuff you've done outside of the ring. You've been working for the sheriff's department for many years. What got you involved with that?
I had a lot of people I grew up with here in my town that had went on and worked with the sheriff's department, and a roommate I had in college. We used to, when we wasn't watching wrestling, we were talking about being cops, so it kind of went back to that. But I didn't want to, I didn't want to be left, you know, uh, 50 years old and still trying to scrounge around, make a living, making 50, $75 here and there. So I went ahead while I was still going in wrestling, while I was still able to, make decent money around here. I quit going to Japan in about 2010 or 2011. I was just working locally or around the states, around southern states. But I was still making a pretty good living doing that. So I thought while I was still making good money doing that, I could transition into this, and be a little smoother. And I did. And it's been fun. It's been different. Yeah, it's it's an experience. People
Got
say,
it.
"Oh, would you recommend it to somebody?" And I was like, yes and no. I mean, it's rewarding, but at the same time, it it is, but it ain't. I don't, I guess if you've ever been in law enforcement, you kind of understand.
Oh yeah. It's
It's
tough. I mean, just like
yeah,
wrestling
it
is.
is.
It's very stressful too, I'd imagine, because you have so many people that you've got to go after at certain times, and you kind of have to track them down, and
Yes.
they get away like that, if you're not careful enough.
Yeah. It's very stressful. I've just about worked in all I started in the jail. I worked my way up to a patrol deputy. Then I worked my way up to investigator. And, man, it's a fun job, but it's a lot of stress. And, now I work over at the courthouse, which is, fairly, it's I don't say an easy gig, but it's 9 to 5, it's Monday through Friday. So I kind of have a little more of a normal life.
What's your favorite part about working in law enforcement?
Well, I mean, of course you feel good when you can help somebody. That's kind of what we're that's kind of what we're supposed to be doing. Sometimes you kind of lose track of that because you get so focused and you get so like you said, trying to find somebody or trying to find something, or you get so focused and you forget sometimes, really at the end of the day you're supposed to be helping people. So feels good when you help somebody. It feels good when you feels good to me when I see somebody on the other side, like uh when I see them and they're in an orange jumpsuit, and they got handcuffs on. It's nice when you see them out somewhere in normal clothes, being a normal person, and they say, "Hey, man, I appreciate what you done for me." That makes you feel good. That kind of makes all the other stuff kind of worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to, when you think of prison, you think of like the bad stuff, but it also can be an experience where you're trying to turn your life around and you learn from your past mistakes. It's
Oh,
not every
absolutely.
day that you see people that learn something, like actually learn something from the mistakes that they've done, and they try to be a better person. What can you tell me? You just mentioned one example, but have you seen any other people I'm sure you've come across with that have thanked you for helping them out?
Yeah, actually, a lot of people. And it could be as simple as something, like just I mean, uh, treating them like human beings. I mean, you know, when you're in that situation, when you're, you've had your freedom taken away from you, and then, they do it for a reason. I mean, it's not, we don't just snatch people up off the street and throw them in chains and lock them, throw away the key. I mean, there's a reason why they're there, but most of them realize, you know, that there's a reason. And, you'd be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of institutionalization. Guys get in there and they get institutionalized and they never make it out. But there's a lot of people that do. There's a lot of people that get a second chance or a third chance, or you don't ever want to give up on people. I mean, it's a cynical business because you get really really jaded. It's really easy to hell, he ain't gonna change. What's the point in trying? He's not gonna change. But you'd be surprised. People do change, and people do at some point wake up and say, this ain't working. This way I'm living ain't working, and you know, so it's rewarding in that aspect. You feel kind of, I don't know, you feel kind of a way about when somebody says, "Hey, I appreciate you locking me up." But they mean it with all sincerity because, if they hadn't had that DUI and they hadn't went to jail at that time, the next time might have been their last time, or it might have been somebody else's last time. So, you, you do what you can, I guess,
Yeah. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
well, a lot of people helped me out. A lot of people helped me out that didn't have to. And I think especially somebody that's had the life that I've had, a lot of people I went to school with, a lot of people I knew, they've been getting up for the last 40, 50 years now, doing the same job, the same. Man, I got to live the life of a rock star. I've been all over the world. I've performed for dignitaries, and I mean, when you put it in perspective, it's very humbling. And I think when you live that kind of life, and not always necessarily in a monetary fashion, but I think, you need to give back. And like I said, it ain't always money. I mean, so, it's easy to say. I saw here recently, Dwayne Johnson caught some backlash because he asked people to give to the Maui, and of course all it takes is one person saying, "Oh, well, why ain't he giving?" I'm sure he has. I've known him for a long time now. Don't talk to him every day, but the last time I talked to him, he was the same Dwayne Johnson as the guy that I met down in Memphis that was broke just like me. Didn't have any money. Just trying to make these towns off of the little bit that we were getting from WWE. He's that same guy. I think, and I mean, look at the other stuff he's done. I think when you're put in a position like we were, celebrities, anything like that, I think you kind of feel the need. Most people do. I think you feel the need to try to give back, because you realize, that you've been given a gift. I mean, the wrestling business, and like I say, I mean, this is across the, this is in entertainment, sports, anything. The wrestling business didn't owe me a thing. It owed me nothing. It allowed me to live my dreams. So if any of the notoriety or anything that I got because of that, I think we should give back.
That's very well put. Hey, Bull, I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the listeners and to the viewers. Where can people find you on social media?
I'm pretty simple. I got a Facebook page. It's Bull Buchanan. You can, I don't post a lot, but I look at a lot of stuff on it just to kill time. So, people can find me on there. That's about it. Yeah. Facebook.
Yeah. Well, Bull, thank you again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
I'd love to anytime.
All right. Take care.
You too.
All right. Bye. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.